National is coming up. Everyone is out there like, I'm going to buy my favorite football cards, or I'm going to get the guys to prospect on right now for the season. Guess what? You're already too freaking late. And then another influencers, this guy, this guy, this guy, this girl, right? You get the picture. All of a sudden, they're all going after the same people. What should you do? Avoid them like the bleeping plague. Don't be an idiot, and don't be one of the hundreds of thousands of sheeple that are out there. When you buy a sports card, you have to have an exit strategy laid out before you even think about making that purchase. Now, I'm not talking about guaranteed profit here, because we all know you're not going to make money on every single purchase that you make. But it's important to know what you're going to do with that card before you bring it home. That exit strategy is two different things: a why and a how. Why are you getting the card you're getting, and how are you going to get rid of it? Is a player coming back from injury? Are you looking for a quick flip for something that's going to turn in 2 weeks? Is it in baseball and there's a player being called up? Is it a vet that's getting ready for the Hall of Fame? Different video for a different day. That one's not a good idea. Are we talking about an off-season acquisition outside of the hype cycle you plan on flipping when the season starts? Are you buying something raw with the intention to grade? 1 to N number of possible scenarios that could be why you're picking up a card. But before you pick up that card, the exit strategy is critical. Look, just because you're perusing eBay and find a great price, or at a show and a dealer's willing to sell you a card for, 70%, just because the value on the card is there, doesn't mean it's a great buy for you, unless you know what you're going to do with it before you even make that purchase. Is this a card that you plan on selling back on eBay later time? Is this a card you found on ComC that was drastically underpriced that you're going to take and move over to eBay and list at auction? It's a card you're taking to My Slabs. Is this a card you're going to put in a showcase at a show because you set up at a local show? There's 1 to N number of ways for you to move that card. Is the player hot in your area? Like, let's say you live in the Virginia, Baltimore area, right? And big Orioles fans. And even though it's Cedric Mullins in your area, you can move it so you can buy it for 5, sell it for 15. Doesn't really much matter. You never find me there, but maybe you're a whatnot live kind of guy. And that's where you plan on selling your stuff. Doesn't really matter. The key here is to know exactly how and where you plan on moving that card before you even make the purchase. And knowing that information is critical, right? And you have to be able to know, ballpark roughly, what you think you're going to get for it. Like, otherwise, what's the point of the negotiation in the first place, right? There's just really no purpose at all. So it's important for you to have all that information figured out before you even make that offer or click that buy it now. The assumption is you already know what fees you're going to have to deal with, right? Your My Slabs, your what? 1, 2%, whatever it is. eBay, 13.5, 13.4, whatever the case may be there. At a show, no fees, but there are table costs involved for you setting up and understanding that people are going to try to take that 15% off the price they want to buy from you, right? So make sure you work what the fees, taxes, and things like that are going to be into an idea before you make the purchase. Really comes down to why are you doing it though, right? I mean, if you don't want to put in that kind of work, and you don't want to calculate the fees, and you don't want to have an exit strategy, you don't want to plan out how you're going to do it, and you're really just doing it for fun, and you've got the money and it's all for entertainment, you don't mind taking an L on every card, well, I guess that's an option for you, but that's not for me. This is not a business for me, right? I have a regular job. I'm an engineer. This is what I do on the side, fund my own personal collection, have some fun. But like with everything else, it's important to understand all that information. I'm not going to go into something just to lose money. There's really no point. Heck, there's really no point to ever doing that, right? I mean, not in my mind anyway. Are you going to buy a card raw? You plan on sending it to grading? If so, have you picked the right grading company? Look, there's only one. I don't care what any of you say. The answer is PSA on that. Another video for a different day. But do you have that figured out? Okay, awesome. Great. But do you have the eye to see if what you're sending in is worth it? If not, are you going to use a group submitter? If so, there's shipping costs if the group submitter is not local. Right, you're going to have to include that type of stuff. There's so many different avenues and places where nickels and dimes and quarters are taken from you. It's important to have an idea of all that stuff before the game even begins. Some of the things I'm talking about, we're not talking about knowing this information. Like you look down at the card and be like, hey, I want that card. And then you're like, oh, now I got to sit there and do a lot of math at the table or real quick. No, these are broad brush things that you can count, right? If you're going to send stuff raw to grading, this is what it's going to cost me. If I'm going to sell stuff on eBay, this is what it's going to cost me. My Slabs, this. ComC, this. Whatever the case may be. Have all those. Heck, write them down. Put it in a spreadsheet. Write them on a notepad. Doesn't much matter. Make sure you record that information because all this stuff will factor. All right, and let's not forget money-wise. If you do this a lot, there are taxes that are going to be factored into it at the end of the year from your profits, right? Hopefully profits. I don't know, maybe you're trying to do the whole thing as a tax write-off. I guess that is technically an option, like I mentioned earlier, but still. There's so many places money is taken. You gotta know. Okay, here's one of the most obvious tidbits information that anyone can possibly give you, and it's going to fly counter to what almost anybody wants you to tell you. Okay, your favorite influencer is out there on YouTube picking up this guy and this guy and this guy and this girl, and it's like, I gotta have those people. And then another influencer's this guy, this guy, this guy, this girl, right? You get the picture. All of a sudden, they're all going after the same people. What you do? Avoid them like the bleeping plague. I mean, think about it. If there's tens of thousands of people watching each one of their videos and they're all saying it, and the majority of people are sheeple, what's happening? They're all buying the same cards. So yeah, the cards still might be cheaper than last year. But guess what? It's already gone up in price because everyone is out there buying it. And speaking of being out there buying it, right? Here it is. Let's say it's July, like right now, right? The National is coming up. Everyone is out there like, I'm going to buy my favorite football cards, or I'm going to get the guys to prospect on right now for this season. Guess what? You're already too freaking late. That's already happened. Everyone out at the National buying football for the run up to the season already missed the boat. The boat was 4 months before that. It was way before the draft. It's being able to project and calculate, which is really, really tough, right? And I'm not saying you can't buy something in July and still turn a profit in September, October, November, but your margins have already shrunk down because everyone's doing it. Heck, if you ever get a chance to go to Chantilly or one of the big shows during the summertime, just look and see what everyone is picking up. And you can already see inflation has already bitten you in the butt. So knowing things like that is part of your exit strategy, or part of your entrance criteria, if you will. Understanding when and how is critical to when you're going to move something and what kind of profit you can actually expect to make, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out a different way to explain this. It really just comes down to that, right? It's learn market cycles, learn stuff, know when. Be prepared. Know your money. Know what it's going to cost you to do anything. Be prepared. And if it's possible to pick up players for people, like let's say you set up at local shows. You're not a dealer per se, but you always set up at local shows. And there's 20 to 30 people that come to your table and they're always looking for certain players and they're always buying them. Even if they're not big, famous, popular names. Earmark those, make those part of your strategy. Find those guys, buy them for those people. Make sure you know that you have these cards basically already sold or in the bag before everything begins. You need to figure out the strategy for you. But again, know all the stuff going in before you make the purchase. If you can do that, you will be so much more successful. Yeah, it takes some of the joy and fluffiness and whatever else you want to call it in a way, but fuck all that crap. Who gives a shit, right? You need to put in time, you need to work, you need to put in effort. That's how you succeed. You don't succeed. Well, some people succeed by luck, but that's not the reality of life, right? So know why you're picking up certain cards, know how you plan on reselling them, and know your numbers. If you know all that, you'll be more successful than not, even if you take the occasional L. Oh yeah, and ignore influencers. No one knows what the hell they're talking about, and they're all talking about the same crap. So ignore them all. Trust me, it'll save your time.